In July 2022, England released 4 European bison into West Blean and Thorndon Woods near Canterbury, the first wild bison in Britain for 6,000 years. A bull joined the 3 females a few months later, but the females did not wait. Within hours, the matriarch charged straight into a thicket of rhododendron and ripped it out with her head. Then she turned to the nearest willow and tore long vertical strips of bark away in deep gouges, exposing the pale wood like a surgical cut. Right beside her, the younger females dropped to the ground and began rolling violently, churning the soil into shallow pits with their powerful hooves and shoulders. Bare earth that had not seen daylight in decades. No one told them to do any of this. Within weeks, the bison had trampled brambles and opened corridors through woodland so dense that light had not reached the forest floor in decades. The woodland was responding to an animal it had not seen since the Stone Age, as if it had been waiting. What they did to that forest in a matter of weeks accomplished more than years of human management had achieved with chainsaws and heavy machinery. This is the full story, from the extinction that erased these animals from the wild, to the near-miraculous recovery from just 12 zoo survivors, to what the monitoring data is now revealing about how a single returned species can reshape an entire ancient woodland. Most videos about bison reintroductions show the release footage and call it a success. This one follows the changes 3 years deep into the bark stripping, the wallowing, the tree knockdowns, the dung beetles that arrived without being invited, and the scientific evidence that is only now emerging about what happens to a dying forest when its most powerful ecosystem engineer returns after 6,000 years. Every claim in this video is sourced from Kent Wildlife Trust, the Wilder Blean Project monitoring reports, and peer-reviewed data on the European bison's ecological impacts. This is not speculation. This is what the woodland and the bison are actually doing. But before you can understand what the bison are doing now, you need to understand what Britain lost when they disappeared and why bringing them back was one of the most ambitious wildlife gambles in modern European conservation. The European bison is not a decorative animal. It is Europe's largest land mammal. An adult male can weigh close to 900 kilograms. Built like a forest tank, it is distinctly different from the open grassland American bison most people picture. Its ancestors shaped European woodlands for hundreds of thousands of years. Its hooves churn soil, its shoulders push over trees, its teeth and tongue strip bark in long vertical wounds, and its dung feeds entire communities of insects and fungi. Later in this video, you will see what happens when those 4 behaviors return to a woodland that has been slowly dying under its own closed canopy for decades. The results are unlike anything the conservationists expected. But first, how Britain lost these animals in the first place. When you remove an animal like the European bison for 6,000 years, you do not just lose a big mammal, you lose a function. And Britain lost that function completely. Hunting and habitat loss wiped them out across the continent over centuries. By the end of the First World War, the last wild herds in Poland had been slaughtered for sport and meat. In 1927, the very last wild European bison on Earth was shot by a poacher in the Caucasus Mountains of Russia. The species was extinct in the wild. Every forest that had evolved with them was suddenly without its most powerful engineer, but the bison were not entirely gone. 54 individuals survived in European zoos, and every single one of them could be traced back to just 12 founding animals. 12! That is the genetic bottleneck through which an entire species had to pass. From those 12, conservationists began the most meticulous breeding program in the history of wildlife recovery. Every individual was documented, every lineage tracked. The European Bison Pedigree Book, first published in 1932, has recorded every living bison every year since. From 12 zoo animals in 1927, the population has grown to approximately 7,000 free-roaming bison across Europe today, a recovery from the edge of oblivion that took nearly a century. In Britain, they had been absent for 6,000 years. No living ecosystem here had any memory of them until July 2022. What England did next would change a 560-hectare ancient woodland forever. The Wilder Blean Project, a partnership between Kent Wildlife Trust and Wildwood Trust, released the founding herd into a fenced section of West Blean and Thorndon Woods. 3 females arrived first in July, the matriarch, an 18-year-old from Scotland, and 2 younger females from Ireland. The bull followed from Germany in December, delayed by months of post-Brexit import paperwork. His bloodline traces directly back to the 12 animals that saved the species. The bison were not brought here because they needed saving in England. They were brought because the woodland needed saving, and bison were identified as the most effective tool available for the specific ecological work required. No supplementary feeding, no directed management beyond basic veterinary care. The animals behave as wild animals. The woodland changes around them. The European bison is unique among large herbivores because of the precise combination of 4 behaviors it brings to a forest, all operating simultaneously, each producing a different ecological outcome. Bark stripping creates standing deadwood snags in a single season. Tree knockdown opens the canopy and lets light flood the forest floor. Wallowing produces bare earth depressions that are critical for specialist insects and plants. Selective grazing creates a mosaic of vegetation instead of a uniform carpet. The combined result is something no human management program has ever been able to replicate at scale. It cannot be purchased. It cannot be scheduled. It has to be lived into existence by an animal that evolved to produce it. What happened next took everyone by surprise. Within weeks of release, the matriarch was tearing out rhododendron and stripping bark, behaviors that no management plan had anticipated. Corridors opened through the woodland. Light reached the forest floor for the first time in decades. Dung beetle larvae appeared in the bison droppings so quickly that one ranger asked how the beetles got the memo. Fungi began growing from the dung within days. Bark-stripped trees began their transformation into the dead wood habitat that supports thousands of species. The monitoring program, one of the largest of its kind in the UK and running until 2050, documented measurable changes in the first year. Slow worm counts rose dramatically. Grass snake sightings quadrupled. New plant species appeared in the grazed and disturbed areas, species that require direct light or open soil, and that had found no pathway under the sealed canopy. The herd began to grow. In September 2022, just 2 months after the females arrived, the matriarch gave birth to the first bison calf born in British woodland in thousands of years. A second calf followed in late 2023, the first conceived and born entirely in the woodland. A third arrived in the summer of 2024. The founding 4 had become a growing herd. And that is where the story gets truly interesting. Because what the bison are doing to the woodland is not just surviving. They are making decisions the models did not predict, and triggering ecological changes that scientists are still working to fully measure. The first surprise was how fast and how thoroughly the woodland responded. The conventional tools of conservation, such as coppicing, cutting, and clearing, work for a while, but the canopy always seals shut again. Bison deliver results around the clock year after year without a salary or a management review. The second surprise was cultural. In a country with no genuine wilderness left, the bison do not produce a tidy, orderly woodland. They produce a messy, broken-looking woodland with fallen trees, stripped bark, churned soil, and open gaps. This directly conflicts with a deeply rooted British assumption that managed land should look managed. Dangerous wild animal legislation means the bison cannot share the same space as the public, so Kent Wildlife Trust had to build bison bridges so visitors could walk overhead while the animals passed underneath. Any talk of expansion raises serious questions about land ownership, liability, and public safety near animals that can weigh close to a ton. Yet the ecological argument is straightforward. The cost of conventional woodland management is rising. The results are not keeping pace with the decline. Bison deliver results human intervention cannot match, and they do it continuously without being directed, without being paid. The project continues, the debate continues around it, and the woodland quietly continues to change. The recovery of the European bison from 12 zoo animals to 7,000 wild individuals is one of the most significant conservation achievements of the 20th century. It took nearly 100 years, and in July 2022, that century-long recovery reached an English woodland near Canterbury. The trees being stripped and knocked over right now will become snags and deadwood over the coming decades, supporting species not recorded at this site for generations. The calves being born in the woodland will grow up knowing no other landscape. They will learn where the best bark is, where the best wallowing ground sits, where the water pools after rain. They will shape the woodland the way their ancestors shaped forests across this continent for hundreds of thousands of years before humans removed them. The monitoring program runs until 2050. By then, the oldest bison born at West Blean will be approaching 30 years old. The woodland around them will look nothing like it does today. It will look messier, more broken, and far more alive. What is happening in that Kent woodland is not a return to the past. It is an experiment in letting an animal do the work that humans cannot afford, cannot sustain, and cannot replicate, and discovering that the forest already knew what to do with it. The bison stripped the bark. The beetles moved into the dead wood. The light hit the ground. The seeds germinated. And an ancient woodland that had been slowly dying under its own canopy started, for the first time in centuries, to breathe. But bison are not the only species being brought back to reshape landscapes across Europe. In our next video, we will look at another animal that disappeared from an entire country and what happened when it was finally allowed to return.